What I'll do is just open us in prayer as we go into the meeting, and then I'll ask the team to introduce themselves and say hello, and then we'll move on into what we've got to hear this evening. So let's begin with prayer. Father, as we gather tonight as your church to discuss your business, we pray that you would guide us by your wisdom, that you would help us to be open to what you want us to hear tonight, and that you would give us the wisdom that we need to ask the questions that will take us forward and to go forward together into the work of your church and the work of your kingdom in this Episcopal area of Huddersfield and this Diocese of Leeds. Keep us always mindful that we are here to serve your people and to spread your love in your world. We ask it, Lord, in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen. Okay, so as you can see, half of my screen is filled by somebody else. So I'll first of all ask Bishop Smither to say hello.
Hello, everyone. You can see this is top team here working side by side. But who would have imagined that on a balmy summer's evening, we would have 123 people registered to attend this session? So well done, Janet and team, for gathering so many of us together. But I actually simply want to begin by thanking you, not just for coming onto screen today to find out more and think of how it applies in the Episcopal area and in the kind of various streams of work that you offer in the lives of the church, but simply to thank you for that. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, as treasurer, PCC member, warden, clergy, thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. And not only that, I hope you're going to have really big ears and really clear minds to listen, to imbibe, and then hopefully to input this in our local area. So thank you.
Thanks, Smither. Okay, I'll come next to Janet, our stewardship officer, for Janet to say hello.
Thank you. My name's Janet Edmond. I'm the Senior Stewardship Officer, and I've been working with the diocese now since 2019. I know quite a lot of you and have met you in your PCCs. And I've been supporting our PCCs and their parishes and clergy with stewardship advice and guidance since 2019. The type of guidance that we offer, something like the parish giving scheme or stewardship campaigns, digital giving, grants and fundraising, financial giving reviews, that sort of information. And we're always happy to support our PCCs in that. I'm really looking forward to working with you on the Parish Share agreement process. I'm looking forward to meeting you all and really helping you with support from the stewardship team. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. And I will come next to our new colleague, Anne Roebuck, who's very recently started in the diocesan office and is going to come and tell us all about herself. What's your name? Where do you come from? And no, that's a different show. Sorry, Anne, over to you.
Hi, everyone. As Phil says, I'm really new. So I started work 2 weeks ago, and I am going to be the Parish Support Officer, which is a brand new role. And what it means is I'm going to get to come to all the parishes across the diocese and meet with you lovely people to speak to you about your parish share requests, and also to find out what kind of support that we can help you with. Just to let you know a little bit about me, my background is in debt advice, and I worked for Christians Against Poverty for a good number of years, doing both debt advice and training people to give the debt advice. Just personally as well, just to say, I'm also married to a vicar here in Bradford. And so hopefully I will bring in some of that understanding about what that means for clergy and for the church when I'm talking to you in these meetings. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. So I will pass over now to my colleague Beth so that she can introduce herself.
Hi everybody, I am Beth. I'm a stewardship officer in the Diocese of Leeds, and I work very closely with Janet and now Anne as well. And I'll be coming along to some of these meetings to talk about the support that we can offer you guys. But yes, lovely to see you all on a lovely sunny evening.
Thanks, Beth.
To Jeff now.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Beth. So Jeff's now going to introduce himself and then move into our presentation. So Jeff, over to you.
Good evening, everyone. Great to see many familiar faces on the call this evening. Yes, Jeff Park, Chief Finance Officer for the Diocese. So my responsibilities at Church House cover finance, our clergy property team, IT, and stewardship and income generation. So they're the things I'm doing day to day, but ultimately we're all part of the same team supporting our parishes and clergy in delivering ministry across our diocese. Janet's going to share some slides in a moment, and we'll get down to business in terms of what we have on the agenda this evening. We're going to kick off with a little bit of background in terms of trying to explain why we're here before we bring a bit more detail about what is this parish share agreement thing that we are talking about, because ultimately that's what we're here. So we're going to, well, at that point, I'll be passing over then to Janet to talk through some of the benefits that we see for parishes and the diocese in this process, and then the practicalities of that. So if we could just have those slides, please, Janet, that'd be great. Thank you. So if you just jump straight to slide 3, please. So in thinking about the background here, I just want to highlight 3 particular things, really. There's some national context, there's some diocesan context, and some parish context. So I'm going to look through each of those and try and highlight a couple of things that have brought us to where we are. So from the national perspective, the National Church, the National Giving Team at Church House London, issued a report about 15 months ago called Parish Share, What Makes a Difference? And this report was very much focused on their research into parish share schemes across the country and saying, what is making the difference? Why is one system working better than the other? Now, it's first off worth noting that the thing they conclude is it isn't the actual system itself that's making the difference. It isn't the fact that it's a formula of one kind or a free will system of another kind that's making the difference. What they actually noted was that actually the type of system makes less difference, and it's more the approach and the parish to diocese relationship that makes the difference. And so they made 4 particular recommendations, and it's the 4th one that ultimately we're going to focus on here. But first of all, they said there should be a clear project team. So the diocese should have a clear project team of who's doing what and ensure that that's established and working. And we already had an informal team, but we formalized that. So that team includes myself and Janet, Bill here, and Chris Tate, our Director of Comms. And we're there making sure that day to day the work around share is happening as it should. The second 2 come quite closely together. The National Church was very much saying you need to make a multi-year approach. So don't just think about tomorrow, but actually be consistent in your approach, and principally in communications, because actually it's communications that are vital. And that then fed through to their 3rd recommendation, was around having a communications plan. And we've been reasonably consistent in the way we've handled communications over the last few years. Now, there's always room for more in communications. It's one of those areas that we hear quite regularly. What about this? What about that? And we do try and improve it, but we're also trying to be consistent. The 4th area is the one that we looked at and went, there's more for us to do in this area. The recommendation was that there should be face-to-face events between parishes and the diocese. Now, that could work in 2 ways. That could either be events that are large scale, so say whole deanery events or whole episcopal area events, or it could be smaller, face-to-face, one-to-one events. And in this conversation, we're going to be focusing on the latter. What do one-to-one conversations between diocese and parishes look like? The second bit of context, I think, is the diocesan context. So the diocese has been running a underlying operating deficit of around 2 million for the last few years. So post-COVID, when share dropped back, the deficit has been bobbing around 2 million. Now, brilliantly, In each of individual year, there's been the odd rabbit being pulled from a hat that means the actual deficit has fallen lower than that. That might have been something to do with the Linda Box case or a large property sale that's given us some one-off income. But the underlying position, unfortunately, has been a deficit of around 2 million. So what are we doing about that? Well, there are 5 things listed on the screen that are all playing a part in addressing that deficit. The first one is a national church is undertaking a review of the financial flows between dioceses and the national church, which the idea is simplifying that and providing more financial support to dioceses. Now that is coming to fruition at present with the figures, what that looks like, just starting to come out. Last week, we saw the church commissioners announcing their funding settlement for the next 3 years. And just this week, we're expecting the national church to send through their figures of what that means for each individual diocese. So that's very much a live conversation, and that will be going through to July General Synod for review. The second point to highlight is strategic investment. So the National Church is making funds available for strategic investment, and those funds are being used for strategic development funding projects or Barnabas and other such projects. And those projects are intended to support the long-term missional and financial strength of our parishes. And in time, we would hope we'd see the benefit of that at a diocesan level. The third area to highlight is property development. The diocese has always owned land and buildings, but we've had a real focus over the last 2 to 3 years as trying to maximise the opportunities that exist within our land and buildings. Now, there's a tension around that, around net zero carbon, around social value and around financial value, and that's something that we toy with through our property committee on a day-to-day basis. The fourth area is one that's been there and will be there all the time, cost control. We have to make sure the money we do spend is spent well and we get good value for it. And that continues this year like every other year. And then the fifth area is the area that we're going to talk about tonight, parish share agreements. And so we'll look at that in a little more detail as we go through the next slides. So in a parish context, there are quite a number of slides or graphs or data I could have presented to sort of highlight what parish context might be. However, given we're talking about share, I thought we would use the lens of parish share to highlight what is something of the financial context for parishes. As many of you will know, there was a marked change in context in COVID-19 and then with high inflation levels through 2022 and 2023. And that has resulted in much higher costs of running a church than were seen pre-COVID, whether that be insurance, utility bills, or repairs. The flip side of that has been pressure on personal incomes, which mean income levels for churches may not have kept pace with inflation. And that's quite evident in the graph on the right-hand side. You can see in each of the coloured lines showing the drop in share in 2020, and that hasn't really increased since. The green line in the middle is the diocesan position, and that position is at 11.7 million compared with 13.6 pre-COVID. And had that kept pace with inflation, we'd now be at 18 million. So that is just one lens of which we can see that parish finances are under pressure in the amount of share that is being contributed. So what are we doing about that? What is this parish share agreement process we're talking about? Well, reflecting on those challenges, those national recommendations that we're talking about, and also learning from what some other dioceses have started to do, we've agreed with the Diocesan Board of Finance that we'll begin a process of creating 3-year parish share agreements with every parish in the diocese. So what does that mean? Well, that means that there'll be a face-to-face meeting with every parish on a rolling 3-year basis. We are a large diocese. We have around 450 parishes, and therefore that's around 150 parishes per year. One of the big debates over the last 6 months has been whether we could do something in a big bang sort of way, such that we could see all parishes in 1 year. And we've concluded that to do that would have been something that we would not have been able to do well. And so we've gone for the approach of doing this on a 3-year rolling basis. The aim of that is to enable diocesan officers to fully understand the local context and come to what is a reasonable share request for that 3-year period. And that enables people to plan forward and have understanding of where they're going. The existing share formula will continue. That share formula gives us consistency in approach. It means that everyone is being treated in the same way when we begin that discussion. So we'll be using that share formula to calculate 3 years requests that cover the years 26, 27 and 28. And we will be issuing that share request in the normal way in October 2025. And that will be then the benchmark for which all conversations begin. Now I'm going to hand over to Janet, who's going to take us through the next set of slides.
Thank you, Jeff, for that overview of the Parish Share Agreement process. And what I wanted to go on to explain now was to just show you some of the benefits that we think both parishes and the diocese will have from the Parish Share Agreement process. We think there are benefits for both. First of all, probably one of the most important things that we will be doing is actually listening to you, meeting with you, talking to you, understanding the individual concerns that you have for your parish, for the local context, and also what impact contributing to Parish Share actually has on your parish. We want to understand that. And we also want to, during those meetings, have a discussion to try and understand and identify what kind of support you need and provide that targeted support to help make a difference in your parish and to encourage confidence and to also help parishes flourish ultimately. In doing all of that, we hope to empower our parishes to fulfil their parish share contributions as much as possible, but also that meeting with you will give us that opportunity to also explain the impact of parish share. We often find that people don't always understand what parish share is for and what it achieves, and we hope to explain the impact not just to your local parish, but also right across the diocese as well. And by doing all of these things, we hope ultimately it will help give us that opportunity to build much stronger relationships between the diocese and parishes, to improve that communication stream as well. As Jeff was saying, it's so important, the communication, and ultimately we hope to grow trust. So that's the benefits. What I wanted to take you through now was to kind of explain a little bit of how the Parish Share Agreement practicalities will work. So if you think that in the autumn, we hope to be running our first series of parish meetings, we're going to do it deanery by deanery. And this is an example timeline if we start with our parishes in the autumn with the first deanery. So to make all of that happen, by mid-August, we will be sending an invitation to our deanery parishes to invite them to a webinar, a preparation webinar where we'll be explaining how to prepare for your one-to-one parish meeting later in the autumn. We'll also be sending out a range of dates where you can book onto your one-to-one meeting for the autumn. So there'll be a range of slots that you can book onto. It'll give you some options there. And we'll also be hoping that you will have time to think about who you want to select to attend your one-to-one meeting. So we'll give you plenty of time to do all of those things. And then in early September, our parishes will attend that preparation webinar where we'll explain how to prepare for your one-to-one meeting later in September, November. And we'll also be sending you in early September your 3-year parish share request proposal, as Jeff explained earlier. Every parish will receive this at the end of October anyway, but the parishes that will be in our first deanery meetings will receive their 3-year parish share proposal in early September. And then from September, end of September through to November, during a sort of 4 to 6 week period, we'll actually be running the Parish Share Agreement meetings. And so parishes will be attending those meetings. We'll have that discussion with our parishes. We will agree the Parish Share proposal. And we'll also be identifying what support you need in your parish to help you with your parish share contributions. So we'll do all of that during September to November. After those meetings, after those one-to-one meetings, the PCC would really need to discuss and agree, pass a resolution about what you've agreed in the Parish Share Agreement meeting. So you take all of that information back to your PCC, discuss it with them and have a collective decision, pass a resolution. And then also the support that we would be offering, that's Beth and myself and other teams within the diocese, any support that we're offering to you, we will obviously monitor that support as time goes on to make sure that you're receiving the support that you need. So that's a timeline of how it will work. We've said that we're having we're taking a deanery approach. And so we've actually drawn up a draft timetable here that you can see for all of the deaneries in the diocese. We've done this in consultation with our archdeacons. Archdeacons have actually selected the order in which they would like the deaneries to have their parish share agreement meetings. And you can see here that it goes right through from Q4 2025, this autumn, right through to Q3 2028. Now, it is subject to change. It is a draft timetable at present, and we will be firming that up as we go along. But we've taken into account as well when putting this timetable together is just the logistical factors of actually having these meetings. There is only myself and Anne and Beth that will be involved in the meetings, and it's a large diocese to cover as well. So we're having to try and space this out as much as possible. As Jeff said earlier, we're hoping to achieve 150 meetings with parishes a year, which is quite a significant amount of meetings and travelling around. So this is the timetable. You can see that Pontefract there is first on the list, and you can see the order in which the other ones are running through. So I said quite a lot about the support that we can offer you in those meetings. We will have that discussion with you. We'll try to identify the type of support that you would need. This is just a selection of the types of support that the diocese can offer, all the different teams. It may be that you need church building support. It may be that you need to help from the children and young people team. It might be that you're thinking about starting off and reducing your carbon footprint and looking at net zero carbon projects. Or it may be that you need help with developing your mission, and so we would refer support from the Barnabas team. It could be that you just need stewardship and income generation support, and there's some examples there of the types of support that we can give. But just to reassure you, there will be budget training sessions that we're developing, and we will run alongside the meetings in the autumn. So you will be receiving for the first time a 3-year budget parish share proposal. And so obviously that looks at setting a budget for 3 years. And so the training that we will be delivering will help you to do that. So that's all that I have to say about the support and the parish share agreement meetings, but I think we can go into Q&A now. So I'm going to stop sharing and bring everybody back.
Thank you, Janet. So as we said at the start, if people have questions, we'd like to give plenty of time for questions. So please do hit your react button and put raise hand, and that will put you to the top of the screen with your hand raised, and we can come to you for your question and hopefully get through as many as we can. So off you go, raising your hands, unless the team have completely blinded you with signs. Pat, you were first. You'll have to unmute yourself.
Yep.
There you go.
Thank you very much. My first question, I have a few lined up, but we'll see where we get to. Why don't you start these parish meetings with those parishes who don't pay their share in full and get them on the right road rather than trying to do it on a blanket approach?
Okay, I'll ask Jeff to come in on that one.
Yeah, thank you, Pat. Yeah, no, we spend quite a lot of time debating the best approach to take to these parish share agreements in terms of which order to go in. The reality is that more than half of the diocese didn't pay its share in full in 2024. So actually just highlighting a minority is not the case. So we're actually working with the majority when we say they didn't pay in full. So in reality, that would at least be the first year and a half. And our experience from talking to Manchester is one of the risks that they found is by talking to those who appear to be struggling on past history, neglects those who are struggling under the water that hasn't yet come through. And their recommendation was, if you neglect the 100% payers, you find that they're going backwards as fast as some others are going forwards. So for our view, having talked through these options with the bishops and archdeacons, was to take a geography approach, because in that way we're then speaking to a real mixture of parishes, some that are doing okay, some that are really struggling, and many in between. And so that is the approach we've come to. And part of that is practicality. practicality as well. If we're going to be arranging face-to-face meetings, then it would enable us to do a group of meetings on one day or one evening, rather than moving from Richmond to Halifax to Dewsbury to Bradford and spending a lot of time on the road. So there's a combination of practicalities and also from experience from other dioceses.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Anne-Marie, we'll come to you.
Hi. When you say that you're using the same formula, does that include the bit where it limits the 10% increase per year?
Yeah, so that's the existing formula as approved. I think for those who are going up, we would, I guess, want to have an open conversation about whether that formula is giving the right answer. There are some parishes, and somebody brought this up at Diocesan Synod on Saturday, where there's not many of these to be frank, where the formula has held the request lower than it should have been, and they could have paid more. So there will be one or two, maybe not more than one or two, but there will be a few contexts where we would want an open conversation if there is an ability to pay more, but the formula is holding it back. That I don't think will be the common position. But yeah, we'll use the formula as approved, which includes the 10% cap.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Shona, we'll come to you next.
Apologies, I was a bit late arriving, so you may have answered this, but I don't think so. So what you've said is that there will be, we'll get a 3-year parish share proposal will be issued in the autumn, but some people aren't going to then get a meeting for 2 years. So what does that mean? Does that mean that we are in effect going to be having to comply with the 3-year proposal before we've actually had a conversation?
Yeah, no, it's a good question, Shona, and it is one that's come up previously, so and we haven't answered it. So no, very good question. Yeah, so how we do this is one of the more complex parts of this. So what we will be doing is issuing 3-year share requests each year now going forward. So we will issue 3 years in October 25, covering 26, 27, and 28, and then a year later in 26, we'll issue one that covers 27, 28, and 29. So everyone always has a 3-year view in front of them. So when we come to have a parish share agreement meeting with someone in 2027, we will continue to look forward rather than say, oh, well, we've already had a year that's passed and that's part of the agreement process. So it becomes a rolling 3-year period moving forwards rather than looking back. Now that does mean, and this is the part of the bigger challenge here, is that in those first couple of years, we have some people who are on agreements and some people are not. Now, I think that's more of a challenge for reporting than it is in terms of paying share. We would hope that each parish is doing their best to pay as much as they can each year anyway. But what we want to make sure is when we report how much a parish has paid, it's clear whether they're working to the calculated request or to an agreed request, because you may end up showing quite a different result. We'd hope on an agreement basis, we're getting very high levels of percentage payment. If somebody commits to 40,000, we would hope they'll get near 40,000. Now, if we've asked for 60 and you've paid 40, that looks much lower percentage, and it gives quite a different view to those who are seeing the data. So I think we'd hope that the levels of payment don't look that different, and it's a case of working through that process, but we need to make sure we get the reporting right so everyone else who sees the percentages understands the context in which that percentage has come from. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, I think so. Thank you.
Thank you. Ruthie, we come to you next.
Hello, it was to ask about if you needed your dates moving from what has been suggested, how would you go about that? For example, your vicar is 5 months pregnant, and by the time that she gives birth, your time that has appeared will she'll be on mat leave.
There we go. Jeff, have you thought about that one?
Well,
Yeah.
I think the whole process will have enough flexibility to deal with that. Now, we wouldn't expect, depending on the context, all this to be on the incumbent shoulders either. So we would have a conversation as to whether the PCC felt they could have that conversation during that time, and if that wasn't appropriate, then I'm sure we can find a way of working through that. There's what we aren't able to do, I don't think, is to take a wholesale request and ask position, i.e. if everyone wanted to move to Q1 into sort of the first group, we couldn't do that. But in exceptional circumstances like that, I'm sure we can make the change. But equally, if the PCC felt that they wanted to do it without the incumbent, whether that's something you'd want or not is another matter. But yeah, we're open to dealing with that in a very pragmatic and sensible way.
Thank you. Janet, did you want to come in on some of that?
Yeah, I did want to comment on the previous question actually about receiving a 3-year proposal, but not actually having your meeting until years 2 or 3. I just wanted to say that in that case, you know, if you were struggling with your parish share contributions and you needed support, you can still contact the stewardship team as normal. I know that in the parish share agreement meetings, we are going to be having that conversation on a one-to-one basis with parishes and targeting the support that they need. But please do feel that, you know, if you have a 3-year request and you're in year 3 for your meeting, you can still come to the stewardship team within that time before your meeting and ask for help and support.
Thanks, Janet. David, you're next.
We've been hearing about being pragmatic and sensible. I'm part of the Almondbury and Kirkburton Deanery, and if I look at the parish share request for 2024, ignoring the parishes that were able to fully pay their parish share, out of a total of 19 parishes, 14 parishes didn't, and they were only able to pay 66% of the parish share request. So how pragmatic and sensible is it to expect them to increase significantly towards that shortfall?
Well, I think what the context is in each place will vary, and it's about having a grown-up and sensible conversation. I guess where we are is that for the last, I think the system has been in place, it was the year before I started, so I think it's been in place for 8 years. We've had this system running. And what we found post-COVID, so over the last 5 years, is that the percentage payment has not recovered. And so what we're doing is not working in my eyes. And so I don't think having a conversation will make matters worse. What we hope to be able to do is to be able to have a conversation that says, what can we do to help you in order to make positive steps? Now, positive steps are going to vary depending on the context. What we obviously can't do is say that everyone can have a 50% reduction. Clearly, that isn't going to work across the board, because that's going to create a whole financial hole in the diocesan finances, which ultimately means we can't pay our way. But we can have a conversation that says X and Y is on the horizon, and we understand that. And if we think that that is a sensible and pragmatic approach to say, okay, well, I'll take account of that, and for this 1-year period, we will reduce the request, or this 2-year period will reduce the request, then that seems like a grown-up and sensible thing to do. But clearly, there are risks here that everyone says we can't afford anything and we want a massive reduction in our request, and the total share goes down. We recognise that risk, but actually we think we're all pulling in the same direction. Ultimately, we all want our churches, our parishes and our communities to thrive. And we think that stipendiary ministry, the Church of England's presence, is a positive to achieving that. And therefore, ensuring we can maximise the amount of share that is available, and we do get this is from limited resources, that we can do that by working together. So ultimately, that's our objective. We recognise there are challenges and there's not going to be easy conversations, but we think we can do it better together than just sending spreadsheets and formulas between ourselves.
Thanks, Jeff. I'm just going to pick up on a question that's in the chat. And for people who are having trouble with the yellow hands, do please put a question into the chat and we can pick it up that way. Amanda was saying, it's a hard sell when you get the figures for a year. I can't imagine how difficult it might be selling 3 years worth of figures, especially in parishes that aren't meeting their share requests currently. And I think the point with that is that this is why we want to have the face-to-face discussions, because it's about building understanding and it's about being able to have a conversation rather than simply receiving some figures from the diocese that somehow the vicar and the PCC have to talk about on their own. So the whole point of having the conversations and having that interaction one-to-one is about addressing some of that communication difficulties. Jeff, Janet, I don't know if you want to say any more about that.
No, I think the only thing I'd add is that I don't think at the moment the future years parish share request should be a total surprise, i.e. the general direction is based on the stipendiary increase of clergy. So we shouldn't be surprised if in each of the 3 years we see it go up by 3% a year, because it's broadly trying to follow inflation. And where the formula's been putting caps and things in place, they've been happening in a reasonably consistent way. So I would hope by seeing 3 years, it doesn't suddenly show that there is a total surprise in the future. I think if we'd stop now and think about what's likely to happen in the next 2 years, most of us for our parishes probably have a fair idea where it's going to go, even if we don't have the exact figure. So I'd hope by adding more light, it doesn't cause more problem. It just gives us more of an opportunity to tackle that, whether that means the conversation and the support that Bill's talked about, or whether that's anything else that comes out of that. But hopefully by giving more information doesn't create more problems. It just creates more time to have a conversation about them.
Thank you. And just another one from the chat that John put in, John White. Can I ask what about churches currently in interregnum and how will they be affected? In terms of the conversation, John, the conversation is between diocese and PCC. So if there is no clergy in post, that conversation can still happen because it's a PCC matter, a PCC decision. So they would carry on with or without the incumbent in place. The difference might be, as Ruthie mentioned, if there is an incumbent in place who's then off on maternity leave or sick leave or something, that might be an exceptional circumstance where they want to be part of the conversation, and we would need to talk about that. I'll come back now to Pat. You're the next one with your hand up.
Thank you very much. I think Jeff's looking at things through rose-tinted spectacles when he says we all believe the parish share is the right thing to do. I've been treasurer of 2 churches in the diocese, and during my reign, I've always insisted on paying the parish share in full, but that has often been against opposition and comments from other PCC members who seem to see it as a tax that they don't want to pay. And I fear that there may be a number of parishes who aren't paying in full who take that view rather than just being unable to pay the parish share. I mean, to what extent are these meetings going to get under the skin of the finances of the parish, the resources, the funds they have in reserves, and what sort of sanctions are there going to be if people don't pay up? Because I feel very strongly that everybody should be striving to pay up as much as they possibly can.
Yeah, and I think these are opportunities to have conversations to try and tease out some of those questions that people might have, and try and get into possibly a bit more of an explanation of why we have parish share and what it's about, and why it's the system we do have. And I think at those meetings, we're not suddenly going to say you can't ask that question. We'll seek to have an honest conversation, and it may be that there'll be some conversations that need to go beyond that initial meeting. But we would hope that a lot of things could be addressed there and then. Jeff, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
No, I think I would just say that we will be looking at the data that's available. So we will be looking at the accounts. And if it's clearly evident that a parish has capacity to pay, but is choosing not to, we certainly won't be saying, well, let's reduce the share request down to what you're paying. That just won't be the right answer. I have been told once that parish share is a socialist imposition. That was by an incumbent. But generally, I have found that most people have approached share with the right intentions. Now, maybe that's because of the people I speak to, but I'd hope most conversations will be positive. I do recognise there may be others who don't quite see it in the same way. I think the part of your question that's a little bit harder is, what are the consequences? Well, there's always a challenge on that one, because actually, what is the consequence of not paying share? Well, it's a lack of funding available within the diocese to do what the diocese wants to do. Now, is there a direct you don't pay today and there is a consequence tomorrow of that? There may not be. But actually, a long-term non-payment of share is going to raise questions if somebody believes there was the capacity to pay. Now, in many situations where there's low share, it's because there is a lack of capacity to pay, not a lack of willingness. But where we have a position where there's a lack of willingness, that does create difficult conversations. And I have known our archdeacon's friends say, we're not replacing an incumbent until our approach to share has changed, when we've had one or two of those places that have said, we're not paying because we don't want to, rather than we can't. So tough conversations do happen when they need to, but I don't get involved in deployment, and I leave that to our friends in the room over there. So I'm not going to speak too much about deployment, because that's an Episcopal area decision rather than mine.
But yeah, I mean, it's exactly right what Jeff's just said there. You know, we fund our ministry by parish share plus other income that comes in. That's what funds parish ministry. So a lack of parish share being paid inevitably impacts on how many clergy we can afford to have, and therefore a long-term unwillingness to engage. And you know, if I've not ever come across a parish in 30 years that simply said we're not paying anything, but you know, you'd have to ask questions about why then should the rest of the diocese fund deployment there in the longer term, and that would raise questions. It's not a, as Jeff said, don't pay today, suffer the consequences tomorrow situation, but it does have a long-term impact. I'm going to come to Peter now. You've been working with your hand up for quite some time, Peter, so it's over to you.
Thanks, Bill. Given the huge amount of assets and investments that the Church of England has, why are funds not being passed on to the diocese to help out in this situation? We're all in a situation where, since COVID, I know COVID's been the deciding factor, but we're all in a situation, and we're no different, where we have reducing congregations, mainly because of age, and also because of inflation. People can't afford to pay what they used to do. And as treasurer, I'm finding that contributions are going down from people who paid more and can't afford it any longer. Our numbers are reducing. We're not getting any younger people in, not helped by the fact that the Church of England hadn't sorted themselves out with the new Archbishop, taking them over a year to sort something out, which the Pope's got done in 2 weeks. So it doesn't help the situation where we're trying to encourage people to come into church when they see the situation nationally, and where the Church of England isn't passing funds down to the diocese to help out in this situation. We're being left to our own devices in the parish to sort this situation out, and it's not going to work. Give another 5 years, we're going to be worse off. And whatever you're thinking of doing, and I'm quite happy to go along with it, because I always have. I've been treasurer 27 years. I do not see it working. Thank you.
So the good news is, Peter, that the church's latest funding review that came out last week, the church commissioners are looking to give several £100 million more into dioceses in various ways. Obviously, they have commitments that they have to keep, and they can't just give all their money away, but they are looking to give quite a lot more away than they have in the past back to dioceses to do things with by various routes. So hopefully that will have some impact. But I did a calculation one time that if the church commissioners' assets were divided between the parishes, we wouldn't all get the cost of our parish share for a few years. It would be less than that once you'd covered all the costs that the assets would also have to pay. So I think they are doing more, and I think that message has been heard. That's very important. And just to say on the Archbishop of Canterbury question, because a lot of people have said this. What the Roman Church do, of course, is gather the cardinals together and they make the decision. So if we did the same, we could have gathered all the diocesan bishops together and they could have chosen a new archbishop in a weekend. But what we do in the Church of England is we do a lot of consultation, we talk to people, we let a lot of people have their say to inform the process. And so it naturally takes longer than it does in other ways of doing things. And I'm sure if we didn't give anybody a say except the bishops, then there'd be plenty of people who'd complain about doing that, because there is no perfect system. But we try to be a little bit more participative.
The longer it takes, the more confusion will be at the end, because you'll appoint somebody and there'll be lots of people will say, why has that person been appointed? Why was it not so and so?
Yeah.
And you're just delaying the inevitable by doing that.
So there is no perfect system, but that's the system we've got. So that's. But we're here to talk about parish share.
Sorry,
I just wanted to explain why there was a difference in the systems. Alan, we'll come to you next.
Great, thank you very much. I just wanted to say that, yeah, often the situation is very scary at a parish level, and I'm sure there's lots of nodding heads of experience of that. But to say that I think talking is always helpful, and I've completely found that the finance team has been really receptive to those sorts of conversations. I think it's a big challenge, and so doing what we've always done and expecting something different to happen is not a good plan. So doing something different is a great plan. I'm really grateful that people are going to come and talk to me personally and try and understand my situation. And I'm really glad to have the opportunity to explain in a bit more detail what can you expect to happen over a 3-year period. I think that's a really good idea.
Thank you. I'm just going to take a couple of comments from the chat before I come to Richard. So John's asking if the current formula for Parish Share could be explained briefly, and I'll come to Jeff in a second to ask him just to give a quick outline of that. Anne-Marie was asking if there's transparency around how Parish Share money is spent. Yes, there is. That comes out in the diocesan reports every year, and it gives a breakdown of where the money comes from, where the money goes, and all the rest of it. So the diocesan annual reports will always show that. And they'll be on the website for everyone to see. So that breakdown is given. And then Abby's saying it'd be good for diocese and parish to have a 3-year view of Share that takes into account planned projects, enables clearer budgeting on both sides. The issue will be whether the unexpected comes along. And I think Jeff already said a bit earlier that if the unexpected does come along, then obviously we need to be ready to have some conversations about that. And you know, if an aeroplane lands on your church or something, maybe not the best example to use this week, then obviously we need to have some conversations about exceptional things. But we would want to be doing that. So Jeff, could I just ask you to give a quick outline of how the Parish Share formula works at the moment, just so people understand.
Yeah, no problem, Bill. And just to say, we will include a link in the email that goes around at the end with the slides and the video recording to a guide on our website regarding the share, because that's been a question that's been asked in a couple of meetings. So I think that the basic factors are deployment. So what's the cost being put into a parish? And then attendance. So what's the size of the gathering in that parish? And those two things give, I guess, an idea of cost and capacity to pay. And then we overlay that with a deprivation factor. So in an area that's above average in wealth, they would get an uplift. So the base request that say was 10,000 would move upwards. In an area that was below average in wealth, in the diocese this is, there would be a reduction. So that's the broad principle of the system. So we have deployment and attendance with an adjustment for deprivation. Now the system does have a number of caps and collars. That's when it gets a bit more complicated, and I don't really want to run into too much depth on those. So we'll just mention one of those caps, and the one cap is the unrestricted income cap that says we would never ask for more than 8% of unrestricted income. But there are various other caps that means that share can't go up too fast or down too fast, which are explained on our website, and we'll provide details to those, as I say, when we circulate information after the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Now, Richard had his hand up and it's disappeared. Richard, does that mean that your question's been answered?
It was quite similar to Abby's question. I had slightly more positive examples of your church has great revival and suddenly you can pay much more than you could over the 3 years. Or the other way, your vicar is asked to cover further churches than they were previously, or just 1 year your finances do look different to another year. We had I forget what it's called. Somebody died and left a large amount in their will. If that year is used to then set out the 3 years, we're going to have a very different issue on the 3rd year than we did at the start. So how flexible it can be, which is largely covered. But if you had any extra info, that would be great.
Thanks, Richard, and thank you for bringing in the great hope and prospect of revival. We all need that, and hopefully that's what we're talking about over the next few years. Anne, you've got some comments.
Yeah, just to reassure everyone, we are going to be trying to make an agreement, obviously, in our meetings together. Things change. We all know that things change. Please let me know when a major things change, like suddenly your roof is falling down on your head and you've got a massive buildings kind of bill to pay. Please let us know. You can always come back to us, and you can always let us know. This doesn't have to be a one-time agreement and that's it. You can come back to us.
Thank you. Okay, have we exhausted all the questions? There are no more hands up. Okay. Well, if nobody else has any questions, let me say thank you for being here. Thank you to the team for presenting and for the work that they're going to do. I've done my quick accountant's calculation that 150 meetings a year means 3 a week, every week. No holidays, no time off, no Christmas, no Easter. So I think the team are going to have a very big job on their hands over the next 3 years to do those meetings. But I do rejoice that we'll have that two-way communication going between parishes in a deeper way than we've had before. I think that in itself is a real gift and a real bonus to all of this. And I hope that helps us all to feel a bit more engaged, a bit more involved, and a bit more listened to than we might have felt in the past. So we'll draw stumps there if everyone's had the chance to ask their questions. We will pray for each other just as we go by saying the words of the grace, but I won't ask you all to unmute and make the holy cacophony. You can hear yourself, and I'll leave my microphone on. So let's pray for each other, for the team, for the diocese, and for all the people that we serve as we say the grace. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us all evermore. Amen. Amen. And we'll all do the Zoom wave, which we've all learned since COVID. God bless everyone. Have a good evening. Take care.
Thank you.